Are we ready to roll?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Hello and welcome to the Movie Marathon Podcast. I am Gabriel and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Dixon, and we are here to chat about 2026's Project Hail Mary, which I just saw yesterday, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, you would have just seen it very recently. And this story is all new to me. We'll get to if it's all new to Dixon as well, but I really enjoyed the hype and the post-hype, and I enjoyed the movie as well. But I've enjoyed everything kind of surrounding this film. I'll say that as just a starting point. And I feel like anytime people are excited to go to the movies, I'm excited. We're excited on this podcast. And we always like to talk about our first experiences with films, our first memories with films and franchises. But since this just came out last week, I'll just ask you, Dixon, what was your experience with Project Hail Mary?
I think I had the same experience that you did, or kind of the same feelings that I think you're trying to explain right now.
Let me just for our listeners, we don't really, if we haven't seen a movie together, which we usually don't, and it's new, which is in cases like these, we haven't spoken about it. It's all fresh to us. We save it just for the podcast. So you're going to find out the same with us. Obviously, if this is Star Wars, we kind of know how we feel.
Oh yeah.
Or Force Awakens, we know how we feel.
We do.
So with that, please.
Yeah, I saw it on Saturday. I saw it in IMAX, which I was very adamant about seeing it in IMAX because I feel like that was the big push for this movie, was to make sure that you saw it in the, best kind of theater and the best settings. So IMAX was important for me to go see it. And I can't think of a bad IMAX experience that I've had. Like, maybe the movie hasn't been as great, but I still enjoyed being in the theater and seeing it in that format. So always recommend that to people. And I think that this movie was maybe not like overly IMAX. Like, I feel like sometimes there's like specific scenes or like specific shots that are done that are like, this had to be done in IMAX. And there were in this movie, but it wasn't like over the top. It wasn't just like, you were sitting there like, oh, they only filmed that or they only shot that scene just because they wanted to get it out in IMAX and be like, oh, did you see that crazy shot that they did? But there was some, I still do think that some of the cinematography was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny. I mean, it's Ryan Gosling, so he's going to bring like a comedic side to it, even if it's a sci-fi, little bit of action, like not like an action movie per se, but like it had that flavor to it. And yeah, he just kind of like I enjoy his type of comedy, like the way that he kind of is serious.
It's like easy.
Yeah.
It's like easy, casual comedy almost.
Yeah.
Like,
and like he comes across as like he's like trying to be serious, but like also funny at the same time. And I think that played in well with the storyline and like the character and everything like that. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I wanted to love it way more.
I feel the exact same way. Same way. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves because I think we'll get there. But why not? Yeah, why not? Yeah, talk about it. Yeah, why not? Right. Screw it.
So I saw it on Saturday. I saw it with our mutual friend Jimmy and
Mr. Bags.
We walked, Mr. Bags, Bagman. We walked out of the theater, and he was like, "That was pretty good." And I looked at him, and I was like, "Give me a second. Let me just think about it. Let me get in the car. Let me process for a little bit." And I sat in the car, and I was like, "I enjoyed that movie, but I wanted to enjoy it more. I wanted to go out of that being like, wow, that was unbelievable. Like, one of the best sort of space movies that I've seen in a while, like on par or maybe not on par with like an Interstellar or something to that level, but something of that caliber, and maybe I need to see it again just to like really like,
you don't need to see it again.
I
No, I mean you can see it again. No, see it again. I want to watch it again, but I don't think. Let me phrase. You don't need to see it again to get, I think, anything more out of it. I think.
true.
I think the movie is what exactly what it's trying to be. It's a light-hearted sci-fi, not necessarily. I don't want to call it like family friendly. Not like it's not family friendly, but I don't think it's necessarily made that way. I just don't think they had to really beef up necessarily anything that wouldn't be quote unquote PG, even though I think it's PG-13 for some reason.
Mm.
But I, the same as you. Well, partially different. I didn't see it in IMAX. I saw it in some premium format. I honestly can't remember. Maybe I should know, but I'll try to mark down. But I saw it at Cinemark. They had a nice screen, but it was not IMAX. And I feel pretty much exactly the same way. I liked it. I had a good time. I left and I was not moved by it.
Yeah.
I didn't. It wasn't like an necessarily like how I've seen like some of like Netflix movies where I've watched them and I either don't finish them or I feel like empty inside. It wasn't that. It was quite the opposite. Like I liked the movie, but maybe I built it up for myself, and I don't think I did because it wasn't like I was like so amped, so hyped for this, where I'm a true fan of the series or something like that. We can get to The Martian, and I love The Martian. It's one of my favorite sci-fi movies. But again, I didn't read the book. I wanted to because I heard that this was really good, but I just couldn't get around to it. Launching a podcast. But I wanted to really like it a little more than I did, and it's weird to say that because I really did enjoy it.
Mm.
But and this isn't a knock on necessarily Greg Fraser at all, the cinematographer who, you got the best view of all that the space stuff in IMAX. It looked good. I don't necessarily feel like there was a lack of space grandeur, but I just expected more of like a message, more of like a a depth
Mm.
to the movie. It was I do want to save some stuff for the plot and the ending because I think there is depth there, obviously, and a lot of surprises. I was genuinely surprised by the ending, but yeah, I just felt it sometimes it was a little too like easygoing.
Okay. So 2 points.
I feel bad because I feel like we're being critical, and I
A
mean it's
little
good to
bit.
be
Yeah.
critical, but
Yeah.
I again I keep on saying I like the movie, so we'll get to the stuff that I did like. But yeah, sorry.
No, I was gonna say kind of like to 2 points. And I think this kind of the first point plays into the second one. I think that for me, if I didn't know anything about this movie, like it was heavily marketed. Like they really were pushing like every time I went on any social media, there was an ad for it, and I saw a bunch
Yeah,
of different clips. So they were definitely really pushing this movie, and for good reason. I mean, it's making a lot of money opening weekend. So I think if I didn't know anything going into it, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Like if I just went into it completely cold. And I also was surprised at how much me personally, didn't have as much of an emotional reaction as I think they were going for in the movie.
yeah.
Like I've cried at some movies that like no one's ever cried at before, just because you know how I am. Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's just me. And there were some scenes where like I was almost at that point, but it wasn't there, and I felt like as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, they're expecting everybody to be like almost in tears at this point. And I was
But
kind of and I didn't feel that as much as I thought that I should have, or I
was
could
Jimmy
have.
crying?
No, Jimmy wasn't crying. Bagman doesn't cry.
There was a guy behind me. Not like I'm making fun of him, but like there was a guy behind me that I could tell was crying, um, which is fine if it made you cry. But I feel the same way. Like I was, I was moved, but not moved to like emotionally. Like
Yeah.
I liked it. Lauren asked me kind of how I felt about it. I was like, in some ways, and again, it's not supposed to be a knock, but it feels in some ways like casual and easy in the same way you could watch like a movie at school almost.
Mm.
And maybe that's just like him being a teacher is like influencing that choice. But it's weird to say also because I don't feel like the science was dumbed down at all. Or not
No.
that it wasn't dumbed down, but I felt like in some ways I was trying to like follow it too. So I'm being probably a little going to be a little contradictory too. But
Well, and I think that the science they were they had I don't know this for a fact, but I think that they had somebody involved in either the when they were writing the script or just on set that was supposed to be like an expert. Like the science is supposed to be
oh,
very
I'm sure.
close to factual as possible.
Well,
Um,
Andy, we'll get to Andy Weir. I hope I'm saying that right. But his dad, his parents or his dad was a scientist, and he was always into it. So you know, I'm sure that the book is probably even more detailed, and actually, he probably went into a lot of that stuff.
yeah, I think it was. I think that was one of the things about the book was that they went a lot more into the science, which makes sense. But yeah, I think it was supposed to be very close to real, as real as it could be with, you're traveling light years into in space. Like we obviously can't do that. Maybe even if we know how to do it, but like I think everything around him trying to figure everything out. And that was something, I mean, we can get into this when we talk about The Martian too. I appreciated how much, trial and error and like working through the problems. Like,
Oh, I love that. That's always the best part.
yeah, that was a big pull for me. And like I appreciate that in movies too, when it's like, okay, we have to figure something out. Like, here's how we're gonna do it, and then let's see how it works out. Like that, I very much enjoyed that part of it too.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've talked about the Martian a couple times now, so I think it's fair to complete our space travels here and journey into some production history because I don't know if you heard, but the sun is dying.
The sun is dying.
Uh, okay, so before we dive into the movie, we like to talk about production history, the story behind the story sometimes, and this one doesn't have that much, but it is influenced by The Martian in many ways because it all begins with The Martian. So The Martian, published in 2011, 2011. How are we saying that these days? And the movie comes out in 2016. Ridley Scott, Matt Damon, the best cast probably of the last 20 years. Like literally everyone's a name except that like German guy on the ship. But
Yeah,
Martian comes out. I love that movie so much. I rewatched it before Hail Mary just to kind of get myself a little amped. And we went into Andy's story a little bit. I don't know if you knew this, but The Martian got published chapter by chapter on his like personal blog, and people got really into it. And then he started releasing on Kindle for like $1 a chapter or something like that. And that's how he got really his start. He couldn't get it published initially.
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, so fast forward to 2022. He's writing Project Hail Mary. He released a book before this, in between Martian and Hail Mary, called Artemis. It's like kind of mixed, but they might be adapting it. But anyway, he writes Hail Mary. MGM buys it before Amazon buys MGM. They bought them a couple of years later, but they bought Hail Mary for $3 million, and Gosling, I believe, was attached to star from pretty much the get go, even before the book came out. So I don't know if he's a fan or something like that. But then they brought on Lord and Miller not long after that, and they didn't write it because they were, of course, and still are deep into Spider-Verse, which I'm looking forward to, I believe, next year after all the delays.
Yes.
But so they're brought on. They don't write it, but Drew Goddard comes on. I love Drew Goddard stuff. He's a great writer. If you've ever seen Bad Times at the El Royale, love that movie. That's Goddard's. But so he originally, it's really good. We should do that one day if you've never seen it. It
Yeah.
came out. It was like well reviewed, but I feel like a lot of people still haven't seen it before. But so Drew Goddard wrote The Martian. He writes a screenplay for this. Did you feel like it had a similar vibe to The Martian in the writing style or in any ways?
Again, definitely with the science and like the figuring out, like having to go through a different set of problems every sort of like beat or act or scene. There was like always something like, okay, how do we figure this out? So that was definitely comparative to The Martian. And yeah, I think for me, I think that they both kind of line up as far as how much I enjoyed both of those movies. Like I love them. Like I enjoyed both of them, and I would definitely see them. Like I would see Project Hail Mary again. I've watched The Martian probably maybe like 3 or 4 times so far, and I enjoyed it. Like nothing about those movies that I would say that I was like, oh, I'm never gonna watch this again. You know,
Which do you like better?
if I had to pick right now, gun in my head, I'd probably say The Martian right now.
Me too.
Yeah.
But in Project Hail Mary's defense, I would say it's probably way more rewatchable than The Martian as like a whole, because The Martian is super fun, I would say, for the first hour, 90 minutes, and then it kind of slows down when things really start to go wrong for Damon. Whereas, and Hail Mary has some of this too, which is probably just the writing from the book, but you know, he also is on the end of this journey, and then like one thing goes wrong, then another good thing goes wrong, then another thing goes wrong. So they're similar in that way. I didn't feel, I felt like they were similar in that I don't feel like they were similar movies. I felt like they were similar in that the plot was a guy stranded in space, but if you like The Martian, you like this, you're kind of going for that. So I don't really, I didn't mind that. I feel like they could totally be independent of each other, and they are, and exist that way. So I feel like Goddard did a good job. And one thing that I did like kind of note in the movie, and maybe this is just the addition of Rocky in general, but they purposely avoided the vlogs. Gosling did a couple of them. We should say Grace maybe, but Grace did a couple of them. But yeah, I feel like they purposely avoided that.
Yeah, I do think that both of these, the when it got to a point of him having another problem to solve or like something happened, it never truly felt in both movies, never truly felt like it was an impossible thing to overcome. Like I never felt like, oh God, how are they gonna figure that out? How are they gonna get through that? Like it was just kind of like, okay, there's a way through this issue, and it's not gonna completely derail them to when it's, you know, like with The Martian, it was he was trying to get home and he was trying to figure out a way to get back. It was already going to be a long shot for him to get back, and all the things that he did to get back home were the very. It was like he was like walking on like a string the entire time to get there. And I felt the same way with Project Hail Mary. Like it was always just these. It was a very slim chance of it happening. So everything that he had to do, he was able to do and figure out. And there was never a point where I was thinking there's no way he's going to be able to figure this out, or it's going to end up being some like movie magic thing that would only happen in the movies. Like it felt grounded, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. I agree with you about the like it being grounded. I never really considered him coming back home. I didn't think that he would necessarily like die or they would show his death, but I kind of partially assumed there could be an ending where he's just floating in space, or maybe there's something with Rocky. So when Rocky, I was going to say spoiler alert, but why would you be listening? When Rocky says he has the fuel to take him home, to get him home, I was surprised. I didn't necessarily think about it, or I was too invested in the movie that, which is good. Like I was similar in the mode of Grace, where I just assumed he wasn't coming back. So I thought that worked well. And again, what you said kind of jogged my memory a little bit. It's kind of intentional that they tell you from the get-go, you can't come back. It's a suicide mission. Whereas in The Martian, pretty much as soon as after the inciting incident, when he's stuck there, the whole thing is stay alive and wait to get rescued. And you know they're not just going to kill him at the end of the movie. You spend 2 hours doing this. You know Watney's not going to die. So I like that they set this up where Grace was supposed to die, even if you kind of know that this is not a movie where they're going to off him. So I did like that, and now I'm thinking about it more. That was well done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Amazon buys MGM. The project keeps moving. More cast signs on. Sandra Hüller comes on. We know her from Anatomy of a Fall, Zone of Interest. She's great in Anatomy of a Fall.
Mhm.
And Melania Vaintrub joins the cast. Did you recognize her during the movie? Do you know
No,
what I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
The AT&T girl, the
Is that her? Really?
saleswoman. I recognized her during the movie, and I was like, "Is that the AT&T girl?" Or first I was like, Flo, and I know it's not Flo, but I knew it was like a saleswoman or a salesperson, and yeah, it's that's who it is. The other pilot, one of the ones that dies.
Did not recognize her. Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
I wonder if the
and
accent might have done it. Like maybe that's what threw it off for me.
maybe I'm glad she's in stuff. That's cool. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I think at this time too, they had Greg Fraser sign on, who I mentioned earlier, the cinematographer. He did Dune. He did the Batman.
Mm.
We talked a little bit about this, but did want to get a question in about it. Do you think that he upped the ante here for the movie? Do you think he brought it to a higher level in the space scenes?
Yeah, and more so than The Martian, definitely. Like
Yeah,
obviously when you have a movie like The Martian that's taking place basically in one environment for most of the movie, like they're obviously going back to Earth, and for some scenes they go to the ship of the crew. So there's a few different scenes, but for the majority of it, it's on the planet. It's in the campsite that he has. Whereas with Project Hail Mary, there was the planet that they go to. They're floating in space. There's Rocky's ship. There's a lot of different other areas where they can explore and do some more with the cinematography. The I was not expecting Rocky to kind of be contained in the glass cases that he was in the whole time, but it
yeah.
makes sense with him not being able to breathe our air and him having his own oxygen or whatever he breathes.
It's a better story choice.
It makes more sense too, because it's like obviously like I could have been okay with it with him being able to breathe oxygen, because I think hydrogen is like it's like the element that's most prominent in space.
Don't ask me, bro. I had Mr. Hanley
I think
sophomore year. I didn't learn a thing.
I think that's the case. I think hydrogen is like the element that's most found in other parts of the galaxy. So it would have been like, okay, that's why he's able to breathe oxygen. So I would have been okay with that, but I did like that there was this break, and it was kind of like they were close, but they couldn't be super close, but they were also able to figure out ways around it and getting Rocky on Grace's ship. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I thought that the cinematography, I mean, that one scene where he's floating outside the ship and it's like all
Over
red.
Adrian.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was incredible.
That was so cool. And again, IMAX is just, that's exactly what it's for. Shots like that.
So let me get to that. That's perfect segue to filming in IMAX. So they shoot it in about 5 months, which is pretty impressive. Mostly, I think, all in the UK. And the IMAX stuff is worth flagging for the listeners who care about all that. The whole film was shot on Arri Alexa 65 cameras, and it actually switches aspect ratios depending on the timeline. So the way it's done, it's not just a tech flex, it's really a storytelling choice. Taller frame for present day scenes, and then it's done in a wide frame for the past. So it's a pretty cool thematic, deliberate difference. Did you notice that? Because I didn't. I wish I did, because it's so fucking cool. But no, I didn't notice.
No.
But maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe it's you're just drawn in. I don't know.
It's so funny because there's some movies where it's obviously a part of the shot. Like, I mean, you saw Sinners, right? You saw Sinners. Okay.
For the audio listeners, yes. Yeah, I saw Sinners. It was probably my favorite movie of last year.
So there's the scene in Sinners where the music scene where they're dancing and the main actor he's playing a song, and there's the shot where it's shot in like the regular format, and then it opens up, and in IMAX I remember sitting in the theater being like, that is one of the best uses of changing.
Oh, that's so sick. I didn't see it in
ratio.
IMAX.
Oh my, it was incredible. It was incredible. It was probably the best change, one of the best perspective changes that I've seen in a movie, and to see it in IMAX was incredible. So that one, but I think it was like you couldn't not notice it. Like it was in such a perfect scene for that use. And again, when it changes between you're going from the present to the past. You're changing stories. You're changing perspectives. The one in Sinners was happening like it was a one shot. So as it's happening, it's like the scene's still going on, and then it's getting wider. So you're kind of like,
That's cool.
it's blowing up in your face as you're seeing it, versus a quick shot between scenes. You might not really pick up on the perspective change. So no, I didn't notice a single one of those in the movie, which I mean could be better. Like I I think if anything, I noticed more because the scenes that were filmed in the wider ratio were those bigger dramatic, like the one we were talking about when he's over Adrian. Like it was made for those shots, so those scenes just seemed to be bigger and made for IMAX and that kind of perspective. But
Right.
it was never a point where I was like, oh, they changed. Like I never sat there and I was like, that I saw it.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. The scenes were just the colors were so cool. And I think it's also worth mentioning one interesting thing they did to make it get like a warm, like even like more film texture vibe. They actually shot it digitally, transferred it to film, and then redigitized it. Apparently, that's what gave it like that vibey feel, almost like glow throughout the whole movie, which I think is really interesting. And they also, Lord and Miller, they shot the whole thing practically, no green screens at all, which is incredible.
Explain that to me. There's no I can't fathom Rocky not being a CG.
Oh, so this is perfect. This is perfect.
I
Okay.
can't. It's
So
just
there is
blew
still
my mind.
VFX, but it's essentially layered on top. So for Rocky, what they did, Frame Store, ILM, Sony Pictures Imageworks, they did the effects, but Neil Scanlon's Creature Shop, he did the practical effects on the new Star Wars. They built an actual puppet, kind of like a Yoda style puppet. They had puppeteer James Ortiz in every scene with Gosling, and then Frame Store they layered a essentially Rocky over the live performance. So he's not a pure CG creation. He's something real that Gosling had to act against, and that's the story of Rocky, why he flows so easily. They did a really nice job with him.
It's so is the puppet of Rocky. I don't know if you know this or not, but is the puppet of Rocky an actual?
Does he look like Rocky?
Yeah, like is he like very close to it, or is it just sort of a kind of placeholder that just has a couple of legs that they were able to move around and then really put the layers over it to make it look the way it does?
I'm not sure. We got to wait for the bonus features.
Yeah, I keep looking because every time something comes up, I'm like, there's no way. I was like, there's absolutely no way that there wasn't some level of computer graphics, which makes sense that they just put layers over it. But it's unbelievable.
But again, what he said was there's no green screen, so they obviously the sets on the ship are all done in essentially like a real set, and then the VFX is the space scenes. I guess when you're not seeing Gosling, when you're seeing the shape of him moving, that's obviously not Gosling. That's all just generated.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit. Two more things I want to cover in just this production history. I'll get to Lord and Miller last. One thing is just the music. Daniel Pemberton, he did some of the music in the Spider-Verse scores. Every other Lord and Miller film has done. Mark Mothersbaugh has done the music. This one, Pemberton did it. So this is the first time that they broke with him. I think Mothersbaugh was just doing something else. It wasn't like anything dramatic. But this is a big score, 38 tracks. It's got some big needle drops. Harry Styles, Sign of the Times, The Beatles, Two of Us. What did you think of the score and the music featured in the film?
I thought it was great. I thought it played into the spaceness of the movie without being too on the nose about it. It wasn't
Whereas
like
the Martian used David Bowie.
Exactly, and like I didn't feel like I was watching a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like there weren't any of those types of songs. I did very much appreciate that the probes were all named John Paul.
I love that.
Ringo
I
and
didn't see
George.
that coming. I loved it.
And I think that's when they played one of the Beatles songs, was when
that was it.
sent the probes out. So I did appreciate that. Yeah, again, it was a lot of really well placed songs at the right times. I didn't know the karaoke song that she sings when they're on the ship. I didn't know that song, but I thought it was pretty good for the scene. But yeah, overall, I thought it was I thought it was really well done, well crafted, and didn't have anything that was too like sometimes in a movie there's a song that just feels out of place or it reminds you of a song that was in a different movie that they used that was
Yeah.
bigger in said movie. So yeah, I think that overall it was just very well crafted and it helped just keep you in the environment and keep you in the story for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The Martian, this is really the only movie we just can compare it to. It's kind of like this weird duology. But The Martian had way more needle drops, way more songs. It was really worked into it. So again, I like that this did the opposite a little bit. I don't need it to have no music at all,
Mm,
but I feel like it had a nice balance, and the score itself not really memorable to me, but not every film has to have a memorable score. It worked for the movie as it went on. So yeah, I enjoyed everything that was presented that way. So last thing I want to just talk about in terms of the production and background stuff. Lord and Miller. It's strange to me because when I was researching this, I thought they have directed more. Because they've worked on so much, but they've only directed Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the 21 Jump Street movies, which I absolutely love,
mhm.
and the Lego movie, and now this. So that's 5 films. They are behind the scenes on all the Spider-Verse stuff, heavily involved with the production, the animation, the writing, but it's directed by I guess heavier animation directors. Usually, I think more than one person on both of them, or the new one too. But Lord and Miller are obviously responsible for the direction of this movie, but the tone and some of the gripes that we've kind of brought up a little bit are probably part of obviously the scripting and just the story itself. But Lord and Miller are, steering the ship there. So they're the pilots. Pilot engaged. So do you think the lighter stuff kind of undercut the epicness that we were yearning for?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, Lord and Miller to me, when I hear that name, I think like, oh my god, these guys have done some stuff. Probably some stuff that I didn't realize was a movie. You know, like that name Lord and Miller in my head is like, oh, they've definitely directed a movie that I really liked that I didn't realize was a Lord and Miller movie. And then when you name those 5, I was kind of like, oh, that's it. Like they sound like more of and like an established, like they've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think again, I also didn't read the book, and from what I heard from book readers and like some of the comments about or from people that had read the book that were looking for some things that were in it that weren't in the movie, I'm wondering if it was how do we take certain parts of the story in the book and make it a little bit more our flavor and how do we make it a little bit more I don't want to compare it to the Lego movies, but like, how do we make it like give it a little bit more of that levity and make
Mhm.
it and also kind of if you're going to cast Ryan as the lead in this role, you want to almost play to his strengths too.
Right.
Especially if it sounded like he was pretty heavily invested in this movie, like from the get go, like he wanted to be in it and he was like really involved.
Yeah.
So I think you have to play into his strengths, which is those like light comedy, kind of like, you know, he doesn't take anything too seriously, but he still has to be intelligent. He still has to be able to like solve all these problems and deal with the situation at hand. So I think that probably played into lessening the serious side of it, depending on, I mean, again, I don't know how serious the book is compared to this, but I'm sure that
I assume it's similar in tone because The Martian also had a lighter tone, even though it handled some heavy stuff.
true. Yeah. But I mean, it probably did have something to do with it. Um, and it was also I mean, you said that this was purchased by Amazon before MGM or MGM before.
MGM bought it, and then Amazon bought MGM.
So I'm wondering if there was some, you know, hands in from the higher ups that were kind of like, oh, we need something that's going to be blockbustery, that's going to get people, you know, butts in seats, and
I
They
have something
probably
interesting to say about the Amazon thing at the end
okay.
when we talked about our in our closing thoughts or
I'm
closing
I'm
arguments.
I'm sure that had something to do with it too. I'm sure that they had people like talking like in their ears, kind of like, okay, this is what we're looking for in a movie like this because of X, Y, and Z, and that might have drawn them in a different direction that maybe they wanted to go to. I'm not saying that they completely changed it. It doesn't sound like they completely
No, I see
altered
what you're
what the
saying.
book
No,
was going to
yeah,
be, but just to make it a little bit more wide, get a wider audience to go and see it and to enjoy it and to walk away feeling positive and feeling happy and feeling like hopeful at the end of it. So that might have had something to do with it. But again, uh, you know, from their resume, it seems like that's kind of their cup of tea also. So
right. I this movie has a small cast. I wasn't going to really necessarily talk about the cast too much because, well, naturally things are going to come up when we do our story breakdown after this. But since it has a tiny cast, I don't really have too much to call out. There are just some other pilots I wanted to call out. Vaintra because of the AT&T stuff, but I did want to give a shout out to Officer Carl, Lionel Boyce. Do you recognize him?
the bear.
The bear, baby.
Oh yeah. I thought he was not. I thought he could have been more utilized a little bit more. I thought he was good in the beginning of the movie when it was just like the two of them in the lab working out stuff together. Um, but I kind of wanted him to come back a little bit more later on in the movie. Like I was like, oh, why didn't they utilize
Yeah,
him?
there were no scenes of him. It would have been nice to see like an Earth scene of him still alive or something when you see Sandra Hüller at the end. I
Mhm.
agree. I liked him. I like seeing him. I love his character Marcus on the bear. One of the few things I still like about the bear, but he pretty much played a similar role. But I enjoyed seeing him. I'm glad he's getting some big breaks. That was pretty cool. This is one of the movies of the year, so
Yeah.
that's some cool exposure for him.
Mhm.
Only two other cast members to really get into. That's Sandra Hüller as Eva Stratt and Gosling as Ryland Grace. So we can talk more about them in our story breakdown. Is there anything else you want to mention about this movie before we get into it?
No, let's do it.
Background.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's finally bring ourselves to talk about 2026's Project Hail Mary.
Hi, Grace.
You're in a ball.
All right, so let's talk about Castaway in Space. So
that's good.
Ryland Grace wakes up essentially from a coma on a spaceship. He doesn't know what's going on. He has amnesia. He's the only survivor on board, and he's very confused. I'm very confused. I only watched the trailer maybe once, so I obviously knew what the story's about, but what did you think of this opening? Did it throw you off at all that they're obviously doing some sort of bait where he's on the spaceship, but how did you feel about this kind of this amnesia wake up?
Um, not anything that was like super shocking to me. Like I was kind of like, okay, they're probably going to do, even from that opening scene, they were probably going to do some sort of past, present, back and forth, which I believe is how it's written in the book as well.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same. Yeah.
So obviously pay homage to the book, do it the same way, makes sense. It was almost a little too light for me. Like
The opening.
yeah, like Grace was just kind of fumbling around. Like he was.
Yeah,
almost
I
having,
agree.
He was almost having a little too much fun. Where a normal person in that situation is kind of like, what is going on? Like I'd be in panic mode, especially if you had amnesia and had no idea where you were, what was going on. Like I think I would have been like instantly in freak out mode. And so it was a little too light for me in the beginning.
I'm going to keep on saying this. It's not good content if we just agree the whole time, but I totally agree. I was like, okay, let's just get it moving. I didn't even care that much that he had the amnesia or the memory loss. I was like, he'll get it back because he's going to get it back. And even if I didn't watch the trailer, which I didn't obsessively. Like I said, I don't think I only watched it one time. I was like, let's just get moving. And I didn't feel like it wasn't moving. I wanted the story to happen. I felt like the story was being pulled from me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they did the flashback, again, I feel like it's almost like a deliberate anti-Martian move because the Martian works in flashes between Mars and the present day. They just really wanted to, you only see him in space unless that's like the flashback scene. So it is pretty cool that it's done that way, but the flashback stuff, the Tarantinoing of it all, I felt like at some point it needed to stop. And it
Mm-hmm.
essentially went on until the end, more or less, to the point where I don't want to keep on saying we'll just save stuff. At the end, when like he's already done it, he like saved the Earth. I'm pretty sure he like on some level had saved the Earth, or he was on his way home, or something. He had solved the main issue essentially, and then we get the flashback of Strat is like had him drugged, and the explanation of why he had the amnesia. By this point in the movie, I don't really care about the amnesia or like whether he was forced on the ship or not. He's on the ship and he saved the world, so it's irrelevant to me. The point is moot, and because he's so lighthearted and easy about it, obviously in the beginning of the movie, that almost now serves as a detachment. So like you don't have to essentially there's no consequences for Strat's actions. They tell you about it so late in the film that you don't really have a take on it because there's no consequences. Like she got away with it. She made the right choice by putting him up there. She had no other choice, but ultimately it happens a little bit too far late into the film for me to care at that point. I don't care by then.
Yeah, I think it was like you said, so late into the movie that it was like, okay, you knew this was going to happen, and that was another thing that you said you only saw the trailer once. There was some stuff in I don't know if it was a teaser later on or some sort of the marketing where there's the scene where he's literally saying in the room, he's like, "I am not an astronaut. I put the not in astronaut," and like, okay, obviously he didn't want to go. So if he's waking up and not knowing what's happening, he was obviously forced onto that spaceship. So that's just another point. That was something I was going to say before too. Sometimes seeing a trailer or seeing marketing can overdo it and can take away from the story of the movie. Like there have been so many movies that maybe not so many movies, but a handful of movies that I've seen, gone into them completely blank, not knowing a single thing about it, maybe just the actors and the title and that's it. And those have been the best movies that I've ever seen because I went into it with a complete blank slate. Whereas
Bro,
something
I've been going in almost blind to everything except like Marvel movies, which they just lie to you in the trailer anyway, so they don't really get too spoiled, I feel like.
yeah, and sometimes those movies you can't. Sometimes you can't avoid everything that they're
No,
putting in
yeah.
because they're marketing it so much. Which this movie they did, and that was another thing that I think I saw a couple people saying like, why are they putting so much of this stuff? Like I think in the book Rocky was a big surprise. Like I think that was a
Mm.
twist in the book,
I
and
didn't
people were like, why was that in the trailer? Why are they marketing this at all?
I remembered Rocky because I did some research for this episode, but if I didn't do any research and I just went to the movie, I would have forgotten that like Rocky was in it. That's like how little I knew about the movie going into it.
When I first saw the trailer, he doesn't come in until maybe like 3/4 of the way into the trailer, and when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh. Not only is he like going to space to save people, but there's also an alien. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool. If I would have saw that in the movie, I would have been like, that's amazing. Like that would have changed my entire perspective on the movie.
Yeah.
If I didn't know that again from like trailers. I have this is probably a little bit of a tangent. I want some studio to be gutsy enough with a big enough movie to not market it at all except for the title and the actors and literally not put anything out there and see how much better it does in theaters. Like imagine if Kevin Feige was like, all right, we think this movie's going to be good, but it's not Endgame. It's not, it's not Secret Wars. It's not anything like that. But we're going to tell you what the title is. We're going to tell you who the actors are in the movie. And that's it. You're not getting a trailer. You're not getting a synopsis. You're not getting anything. And just see how well that movie does just for people going into it with a complete blank slate, knowing nothing else. That is my dream for a studio to have the guts to do something like that. Because I think a lot of people in a particular movie like this, a lot more people, myself included, would have I probably would have loved this movie a lot more had I not known anything about it going into it.
There's a couple things with that. First, I think it should not be a Marvel movie that no one knows anything about. It should be like Secret Wars. They could release Secret Wars with no trailer, and it would still make a couple billion.
Yeah.
Easily.
Oh, yeah.
Probably nothing else they could do that with. I don't even think any other movie could probably do that, but like the most major Marvel movie you could possibly get.
Yeah, it would
Because
have to
I
be
don't
a
think
big
anything
enough,
else that power, and you just know
Yeah.
stars are in it.
Yeah.
I'm saying in the 2026 world, 20 years ago, it would be maybe a couple different franchises or movies you could try, but
that's how it used to be back in the day. Like, think about all the people that saw Star Wars for the first time and knew nothing about it. Like,
right.
there was maybe that one little trailer, and it's not like people were big on
trailers were
back
so
then.
bad. Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, they were
Star
terrible.
Wars.
Exactly. And like, you didn't really see anything, and like, you were okay, this is a space movie. There's some fighting. Like, cool. You don't know anything else about that movie going into it.
We're never going back. We're in the world of the trailer before the trailer. Spider-Man trailer starts now.
But wouldn't it be so cool if they did that now? If they just went into it like, you're going to see this movie, you're not going to know a thing about it, and you're going to love it.
Maybe A24 could pull off some shit like that because they have the balls as a studio, but a major studio is never going to do that. I mean, in some ways, like I know like the marketing departments, they talk, but like they're in some ways completely independent of the creatives. So it's just it's an arm that is massive.
Yeah, it's probably too difficult. It's also probably too tough if it's a big enough studio with a big enough push to keep that under wraps until it came out. Because you got to get stuff out to the theaters. Like, that was the whole thing with I know we keep coming back to Marvel, but that was the whole thing with the teasers for Doomsday.
Yeah.
Those came out, like, there was leaks of those a day or two before the first teaser came out.
Right.
Because it's so big. So
It's
something
impossible.
like that. And then again, if it comes out that they're not putting out any trailers, they're not marketing it, people are going to be like, wait, what is this? And they're going to want to see that stuff. So any kind of leak is going to blow up automatically.
We're going to talk Marvel. We're going to do Marvel. I got big plans for Marvel. I haven't even filled you in, Dixon, but for our listeners, we'll do Marvel. We got thoughts about Marvel.
Oh, baby.
We'll do MCU. Okay, back to the movie at hand. So we get a flash forward. Grace is a school teacher, former biologist, and we get this whole exposition scene, which I thought was done well, how they kind of dumped it down. It was in two ways, like you need an expo dump, and then also you need it to be just in layman's terms. So how do you do it? You have kids answer the questions. I thought that was really smart, and it plays into the plot of him being, not disgraced, but kind of like out of the field a little bit because of his own studies. And I like that his studies were proven wrong still. I thought that was a nice like touch to the character a little bit. It added a little bit of depth in a movie with not so much depth maybe. But I enjoyed that part of it. But so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. He does all that. He explains to the kids. And essentially what's happening is the sun is dimming because of the astrophage, which is what they call it, which is an alien form that is essentially eating away at the light. So Eva Strat comes and recruits Grace to study the astrophage before the 30 years are up. While this is all happening, she has 350 other biologists working on it. She has the whole mission. She's been given all this clearance. I think in the book, it's a little more clear that she has like this like godlike government power. In the movie, you saw it, but I think she's more of a conflicted person. I think Hewler did a great job, but I think she has even more development in the film or in the book. So just kind of skipping ahead quite a bit here, but he works on it, and they have all those fun experiments we were talking about. I love those scenes where he's testing it. And even though, again, the tone is still a little jokey, he's like waving at like the other officials on the other side of the room. And it's a little bit just like they're like leaning. It's a little silly, but I thought that was fun. I thought the tone there worked well. And essentially he discovers all this stuff with the astrophage that it could be, I believe it's partially that he discovers the fuel source stuff, but he gets to a break, officially becomes part of Hail Mary, hears about the plan for the suicide mission to Tau Ceti, all that stuff. And they want to discover why Tau Ceti, which is a real star in our in our universe.
That's cool.
I think it's well, I'm not going to get into the space stuff, but so Tau Ceti is the only star that isn't being dimmed. So the mission is to get a Hail Mary spacecraft with enough astrophage for a one-way trip to Tau Ceti to study it and hopefully send back probes with its findings to Earth. I think I did okay with that.
Yeah.
So we kind of went into the science. How do you think they did with it? Did it go? I know you said it didn't go over your head necessarily, but did you feel like it was hard to follow at all?
No, I enjoy when there's science, even if the science is obviously way over my head, as not being a scientist. But I appreciate when there's stuff like even in The Martian, working through the problems and figuring them out and like doing stuff that probably or maybe couldn't actually work or isn't feasible, like growing crops on Mars. Like who knows if that's actually a real thing, but like watching them being able to do it and figure it out and it work. I believe, like when I'm watching those scenes, I believe that those things are actually possible and actually able to happen. So him figuring out how to create or make the astrophage fuel so that they can get there. Like I was like, oh, that's real. Like he really did something crazy. Like
Yeah.
it feels very grounded for me, even though it's obviously not possible. Because the astrophage, but also on like in The Martian with the plant, him growing the plants, that's probably not possible. We don't know for sure, but it felt real. It felt like it was something that could have actually been figured out and worked. So I appreciated it, even if I don't understand it at all.
I really enjoyed it. The scene where they make the room out of plywood and they're hiding the light was very cool. All the experimentation stuff, it's the same way. Keep talking about The Martian, but the same way The Martian shines through the experimentation and the character being very acceptable to the audience. Very, I can't think of the word, but they're just they're the audience's sounding board, and they do a good job of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they bring us back to present day. Grace is approaching Tau Ceti. He sees it, and all of a sudden, he sees kind of like it almost looked like a weight or something in the path of the line and of the patrol, its own Petrova line. So it turns out to be an alien spaceship, which is very cool. Love how aliens are not presented just as UFOs. That's always just much more exciting. And I feel like Interstellar was one of the first films to really show just not just like different planets. Like the planets are just totally based in realism, but just different from our own. And this kind of was the same way. Rocky's ship was in some ways like incomprehensible, but then at the same time looked like a building kind of under construction to me. So I enjoyed seeing that and how they did it. And the ship is made of xenonite, solid xenon. Apparently, xenon cannot be solid, but it is in this universe, thanks to the Eridani. So there's some time where he's trying to figure out the ship, and this is probably my favorite scene where they're sending the blips over, and so blip A is the ship, and then blip B, blip C. That's all very fun where he's trying to catch it, and that might be maybe my favorite scene. Now looking back on it, it was just super exciting because you really don't know where this is going at all, and it is crazy because you have a lot of things happening. You have the past flashbacks and all the stuff that's being done there. You don't know why he's on the ship or how he got on the ship. You have to solve the greater issue, and now you have this spaceship here, alien spaceship. So it's very fun. And then eventually we meet Rocky, named after Rocky Balboa. But I assume Rocky is everyone's fan favorite. All the Rocky stuff kind of encompasses really Act 2. So let's just talk about Rocky here. How do you feel? How do you feel about him? Feel a thumbs up or a?
Well, if for Rocky, thumbs down. But yeah, I enjoyed him. I appreciated that, again, that they were able to figure out a way for them to actually communicate. I was kind of worried that it was going to be very, him saying one thing and then Rocky saying something in his own language and them not actually. So when he was able to work out the like the code. I forget what the system is that they use to figure out the language, so they were able to
Started
speak
with
to
the
each other.
clocks, yeah, and then
Yeah,
that was
I,
all fun. That was really fun.
that was cool. Again, another problem that they had to solve, and I appreciate that he was able to work through that. But then once they were able to actually talk, and even though it wasn't perfect, there was a little nuance where Rocky says things like,
Question.
bump my fist or fist my bump."
Yeah, and every question. I
Bad,
love that
bad,
they never
bad, bad,
drop it.
bad.
Oh, it was echolocation. That's how they figured out because he figured out that he looks through echolocation.
And he had the clock, and then he was able to put the tape on the numbers, so that's
Yeah.
how he was able to see the difference. Yeah, yeah. No, I once they were able to like more easily communicate, that's when it really Rocky was really sold for me, because I was a little worried again seeing it in the trailer. I was kind of like, okay, this is more of a like a Morbus sort of figure than like a humanoid type alien. So is it going to be that there's obviously a gap between their understanding or they're able, like the way they're able to communicate? So once they were able to get through that barrier, I was sold on him as his own character. He had his own knowledge base. Uh, like he was a scientist level. Like they were equal parts scientists. Like they understood different
Yeah.
things, but at the same level. Um, which I think was good, because it's also I didn't want him to be kind of almost like a pet. The way he kind of looked almost gave me that feeling that they were like, oh, he's just going to be this thing that like runs around and helps out once or twice, but he was an equal partner in all of the scenes that they had together. So yeah, I enjoyed Rocky very much. I thought he was a good partner to Grace in the movie.
I love that you said that he wasn't a pet, he was a partner, because that's true. I think in a lesser film, or maybe a film that's just trying to sell more toys or really be like attracting kids, Rocky would be more of a pet. But he was. I believe in the film he was like a mechanic, like in his role. But I like that they didn't understand relativity and they knew things that we didn't, and that they kind of put their heads together. That was really interesting and kind of realistic to me, that even if an alien species is more advanced, we might know a couple things that they just don't know about,
Mm.
even if clearly they were more advanced than we were. But limited too, because Grace just was able to do more, and Rocky's just rocks. So,
Yeah.
it's quite different. But he can build pretty much anything, I think. So that was very, very cool, and it was fun when he was like in the hamster ball coming around. That was nice, and they really did form a bond where they both lost their crew, which is obviously integral to the rest of the movie because of the sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice, where he gives him the fuel, and then he obviously goes back and goes to save him when he realizes that he's just going to die out there in space.
Mm.
But so we flash back to Earth, which again, this feels now almost like we're going backwards, which we are,
Yeah.
but he meets the rest of the team, the pilot, or the pilot commander, engineer, and the scientist that eventually will die, and they don't develop him at all. So you kind of know it's going to go that way. And they allude to the explosions. But so the 3 days before launch, the explosion happens. This is when she drugs him, all that stuff. We already got into how I feel like we were moving along at this point. And so we go back to space. They named the planet Adrian after Adrian,
Yo, Adrian.
and Rocky talks about his mate.
That was a
So
really good Chewbacca impression.
thank you. It was partially Chewbacca, partially whale noises from our Avatar episodes. Listen to those too. So the Rocky offers the sacrifice to get Grace home at this point, and they develop the plan to gather the organism from Tau Ceti, which they believe this is where either the aliens originating from, or there's a parasite or a predator, we should say, that is able to essentially eat away at it. So they devised the plan to go down and get some. And so this is that really, really cool scene. I think this is where Fraser really shines, and we get probably the best space scenes in the movie, where he's essentially fishing it out, and the film does all the work. It's really just engrossing, and so he's able to get it, and then then they try to fly out. There's a fuel leak where they're getting out of orbit. So in all of that, they end up in a spin. Grace goes unconscious. Rocky saves him, and then Rocky essentially has to go into hibernation mode. So while this is all happening, Grace makes Taumiba, which is essentially the predator that's going to eat the astrophage. And then Rocky wakes up. They say their goodbyes. We hear the Beatles song, or actually, right before this, actually, they say their goodbyes. He thinks it's a success, and then he discovers that it's essentially eating itself. It's eating through what it's living through because it was able to adapt to it, the astrophage. Very tricky stuff. And it reminded me of like the symbiote in Spider-Man a little bit,
Yeah,
like
that's
Venom.
true. Yeah.
So it gets through, and Grace essentially discovers at this point that it'll eat all of Rocky's fuel, and the radiation will either kill him in space or something, or he'll just live in space, just floating, and eventually die out there. So he makes the choice, which this is truly, I was surprised by this. I thought that not that he was going to let Rocky die, but kind of that he was going to have to live with the choice, almost that he was just going to go back to Earth and know that the Arids weren't going to live. Rocky was going to die and his species wasn't going to make it through. But so he sends Paul, John, Ringo, and George out. We hear the Beatles song, and he goes back to Rocky. How did you feel about all this?
Yeah, there was never a point that I thought he was not going to go back for Rocky. It was always once he realized that he was going to die, it was like, okay, there's no other choice, because Rocky helped him get home. He was like, if there was ever a chance of me getting home, now the decision's already been made that I'm not going home because I have to save him because he gave me a second chance, so I have to give him a second chance. That was my initial thought. There was no going back at that point in my mind.
Yeah, like I said, I was surprised, but that was like beautiful. That was really nice. And I made the Castaway illusion earlier, but Rocky's kind of like Wilson that talks. He's his partner for the whole movie, and it really is. It's such a small cast. There really aren't meaty roles other than Gosling and Hewler, like Marcus. Lionel Boyce as Carl, like he even doesn't have that much to do. As we said, he doesn't come back, so it's really just Gosling's movie. But Rocky helps him carry it, and yeah, I love that. I thought that was great. And then even more than that, I loved the ending. I thought that was so good. Did not see that coming at all. So the probes get to Earth. You see Strat, kind of an older woman. I don't know how many years have passed at this point, but also I didn't mention this earlier, but I love that all the Earth scenes are gray. Like obviously it would be, there's no sun, but I just love that they really committed to it. You would hope they would do something like that. But anyway,
yeah,
so Earth is saved. And then the final scene is Grace looking in like a rocky kind of area, but it looks kind of like Earth, just like at the end of a cliff. And he's by a beach, and they're in essentially a biodome on Erid. And the Eridans, I guess, created this as a thank you to him for saving their entire species and planet. And they're talking about the climate and the fog and all that, and you're kind of gathering everything. And Rocky tells Grace that they fixed the Hail Mary and they can send him back to Earth. And Grace seems to like contemplate this, and then the final scene is him walking to a Iridian classroom, and he's essentially teaching all the kids science. So really nice ending. Really love the symmetry in the film, obviously, and I love the twist. It almost had like I feel like a Planet of the Apes vibe, that they're at a beach at the end.
I said the same thing. That's so funny. I was thinking Planet of the Apes.
It had that look. It even like kind of looked like film, like I guess because the way they did the film feature of it, but it felt like, yeah, it just had that like old timey look to it. But yeah, I love the ending. Didn't see it coming. Twist on top of a surprise on top of a happy ending. How did you feel about it?
I liked it a lot. I kind of what you said to the symmetry thing. There was I think it was the scene where they're talking to Grace about going on the mission, and he's like, "Can I have some time to think about it?" And she goes, "You have 3 hours." Rocky then said, he goes to Rocky, goes, "Could I have some time to think about it?" And Rocky goes, "Take as much time as you want." Like he's like, "Whatever you need. Like if you want to go back, we got you. If not, you can stay." And then when he's talking to the class, he asks them, he goes, "Who knows about relativity?" which is something that they didn't know. So
Yeah,
he's like
yeah,
actually
yeah.
teaching them things that they don't know. So it's like a real classroom. Do you think that he went back?
Got to save it for the sequel.
Ooh.
That's my next question. Really, is do you think there would be a sequel? He doesn't have to write the book; they could just make one. So.
Yeah. I I don't know. I hope not. I think that was a good ending. I think it's leave it up, leave it like that. He's happy. He's enjoying himself. He's back in the classroom whereas he wanted to be before. Um, he was able to save Earth. You know, he did what he was set out to do, even if he didn't intentionally or didn't make the decision himself to go. He was still succeeded in the mission. Um, I don't think you need a sequel. I wouldn't be surprised if they made one, but I don't really know how you tie it into this movie. Like, how do you write something about astrophage and all the problem solving stuff that they have to go through? Like, how do you tie it all in and make a sequel that's gonna be as good, if not better, than this?
I think there is definitely going to be a sequel. Maybe not like a 2 year from now sequel,
Mm.
like a fast track sequel, but it's going to be profitable. It seems like people liked it. Gosling's a huge star, and yeah, it made money, and it's open ended in some ways. So I think there will be a sequel, maybe like in like 10 years, truly. But the astrophage came back, whatever it is.
Mm.
But there's going to be some sort of thing. People love the him and Rocky, Grace and Rocky. By the way, I didn't mention this. Hail Mary,
Full of grace.
Had to call that out.
So
Had to
good.
call it out.
So good.
But yeah,
That was amazing.
I think there'll definitely be a sequel. One thing we just really didn't talk about too much. We kind of grazed around it, but I do want to just specifically mention two things. Meryl Streep cameo in the voice for Rocky when they were testing voices, and he asked him to do Meryl Streep.
Yes.
It's actually Meryl Streep, and Ray Porter does the voice the rest of the time. But let's talk just Gosling just a little bit. What did you think of the performance overall?
I thought it was good. I thought he brought the like we were talking about, the levity to it and his own kind of charismatic comedy into the role. Again, it's tough to compare it to the book if you haven't read the book, so I don't really know if that's how the character is written in the book, but I think he does a really good job of playing this kind of like in between. Like, obviously he's a scientist, he's obviously intelligent enough to be doing the stuff that he's doing, but he still has these like shortcomings a little bit here and there, like kind of mixed in with like, again, with his kind of I don't want to say lackadaisical behavior, but that kind of like makes it leaves a little bit of like, oh, is he actually going to be able to do all this stuff? Like he's not the person that they decided initially to go on to it. It was like a last minute, they forced him to go on this mission. I never felt that he was going to give up at any point, even though, again, he was forced onto it. I never thought he was going to be like, I can't do this, I'm going home, or I'm just going to ride this out. But no, I think he did a good job. I think you can tell that he enjoyed this movie, making this movie and being a part of it. So I think that really shows in his performance. And yeah, I think he did a great job. I think this is definitely the first space movie that he's done, right?
But he'll do Starfighter next year, Star Wars.
And kind of to your point of if they're going to make a sequel, he said in a couple of interviews that I saw that he was very interested in and wanted to do more space movies. So I think
weird, not weird, but like
of,
interesting that he's on the space kick.
Yeah, he's like, I did this, I'm doing Star Wars, I enjoy being in this environment. So I think, yeah, there could definitely be a sequel, especially if he's heavily involved, which if he was as, involved in this movie and they're going to make a sequel, he's probably going to want to be just as involved. So I'm sure if you do go forward.
He also did First Man. Like 5 years ago. That's the one where he plays Neil Armstrong. Oh. It's very good, actually. Damien Chazelle movie, the guy that did La La Land. It's good. First Man. It's not like it's not very, very exciting. It's like a slow burn, but the space stuff is very cool.
Cool.
I'm not a crazy Gosling fan, but I thought he did a good job in this too. But I don't have like Gosling fever the way so many other people do. I
Mm.
like him, or I'm like neutral on him, but he's not someone that necessarily like I won't go see a movie for Ryan Gosling. He's in a lot of movies that I do like because I like the film, and he obviously is part of that, so I like his performance too. But he's not going to necessarily get my butt in the seat. The story will, but I think he did. I think he did a good job in this overall.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, I think we covered enough of this film. You ready to return to Earth?
Let's do it.
All right.
I put the not in astronaut.
Okay. Closing thoughts here. So we talked about it already, but I want to give us a chance to redeem ourselves. Do you like this movie?
Yes, I do like this movie. I, as we were getting towards the end of this, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, talking about this movie and going through it again in my mind is made me enjoy it more and think about like, oh, I
Agreed.
actually really enjoyed all of these parts a little bit more than I remember initially in the movie, which again, seeing it a second time might change.
Yeah,
my
now I want to
opinion on it.
rewatch it. Yeah.
You know, I want to see it again, just having gone through all the beats and everything. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was fun. I think space movies are, for me, very enjoyable. Like whether it's a comedy or even, serious movies, I do enjoy, or I enjoyed the fact that this was technically like a Armageddon type end of the world movie,
Yes.
but it never felt totally dismal. I never
Yeah.
felt like, oh God, like I'm gonna have to watch like billions of people die. I always felt like they were going to get to the end, even though there were scenes where I was like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? But it never felt I never felt gloom and doom throughout it. And it didn't give me like that like pain in my stomach where I'm like, oh God, I can't believe this isn't gonna work out,
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way about it. I like it more as we're talking about it now. Maybe the themes need to sit with me more. I think I still like The Martian better, but I stand by my statement that this is probably going to stick to be a more rewatchable movie. We're not in a world where we can it's on TV and you throw it on. But if we did have a world where it's on TV, I would throw it on just in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I could see myself like watching it with my kids. It's a little more accessible. I think that maybe that's the word I was looking for earlier. It's just a more accessible film. Do you think it's an Oscar contender? Sinners last year did the spring release. I think it came out in April. Obviously hard. They're very different films ranges, and I think Sinners is obviously leaps and bounds better than this. So I'm not comparing them in that way.
Mm.
But I heard people talking about Oscar potential for this. What do you think?
I could see it getting. I would be very surprised if it didn't get any Oscar nominations.
Mm.
I could see it getting like cinematography,
Visual effects,
something to that level for sure.
like a tech award.
I'd be very surprised if it didn't get at least a nom in those categories. I don't think that any of the supporting people blew me away. And Gosling's good. Is he Oscar? I guess we also have to see. I mean, there's a lot of movies that are.
Oh, this is gonna be a crazy year, man.
It's gonna be a lot. I mean, we got Odyssey. I don't know if Doomsday is gonna have anything but Dune. Like, so there's a lot of
Leo and Scorsese again. Jennifer
like,
Lawrence.
There's a lot of movies coming out this year. So it would very much surprise me if there were any of those big category nominations, but I would be surprised if it didn't get some of like at least one technical nom.
That's probably what built it up for me a little bit, that I was seeing some talk on like Twitter that it could be a potentially an Oscar contender. I don't feel that, other than the tech awards or nominations that it probably would deserve, I don't think it will be in any of the big ones. Maybe though, sometimes a pop culture audience friendly movie slips in for like the 10th slot in the best pictures, just as like an achievement slot. And I think it could deserve that in terms of like being a production that's really well put together. I always try to look at best pictures as like what was the best overall picture, which I still think was Sinners last year. But yeah, I think tech awards, or some of the below the line stuff, and then maybe a pick. And box office, it's doing really well. I teased this earlier. I wanted to mention something about Amazon. So apparently it's quote unquote like 500 million to break even. It's made about 80 million, but hang on. So that's, I guess, between budget and ad spend, whatever it is. So right now it's at like 140 million, 80 million in the States, which is great. It's the biggest non-franchise opening since Oppenheimer, which is awesome. People are enjoying it and going to the movies. But for Amazon, they're good already. The way Amazon makes money is by bringing people to Prime and shopping on Amazon. So essentially the movie serves as just a big ad just to go to Prime. The movie's going to be available on Prime Video. People automatically are subscribed for Prime Video if they subscribe to Prime. So they just need to make back the ad spending money, which I believe is in the range of what it's already made, and they're good. They've already, the way their books work, they've already made their money. So that's why I say that a sequel is like already like a foregone conclusion, because they could just spend whatever they want and get whoever they need. Essentially, they really just need Gosling back, and they're good. So that's the box office. I think this has potential to go far. There's nothing else in theaters for quite a while, so I think this will kind of just ride that wave and have good legs. And yeah, I just in terms of the box office, I just really think that it's always good to have a movie that gets people back in the movies.
Oh, totally. And this is that perfect movie, like you were saying, because there's nothing else really in theaters right now. And I mean, we're in the Northeast, so it's a little bit colder. So I think people are more willing to go to the movies now and like do something indoors before it gets nicer out. So it might have, especially after reviews come out after this opening weekend and the first week that it's in theaters, more people might be willing to go see it in the theaters than they were before. So yeah, it could. I mean, that's kind of crazy that Amazon is looking at it almost like a giant commercial for Prime.
Yeah, that's the way it works, unfortunately.
It's unbelievable. But no, it's I mean, I hope it does well. I want every movie to do well, especially, movies in theaters. But yeah, I do agree after hearing your takes on the Amazon being able to make their money back, and then if it does well and if Ryan Gosling's involved, them wanting to greenlight a sequel with in whatever amount of time that takes, whether it's 3 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever, like they'll be okay with greenlighting it because they know that they're already going to make their money back. So yeah, I hope it does well. I hope it continues to do well, and we'll see what happens down the line.
Yeah, definitely. One last thing I want to say before we just wrap it up here. Anything that will stick with audiences culturally? You think this will have a cultural staying power? Anything that will stay in the zeitgeist?
I don't know. I feel like that takes time. Like there's a lot of stuff, I feel like there's some movies where as soon as it comes out, there's a big hit, whether it's a character or a scene or something that happens that is a big deal for a week or two, and then it kind of fades out. With this, there's nothing other than just people really enjoying Rocky or really enjoying like certain scenes, but there's not been one big meme or something that's just kind of blown up. Oh, you have?
For the audio listeners, I'm doing the Rocky thumbs down.
Thumbs down, yeah.
That's all I got, though. That's all I got.
That could definitely hang around for a little bit, yeah. Yeah, but some of that stuff definitely takes time, but I could see that being the thing that hangs around for a while.
Yeah, that's all I really got about it. All right. Anything else you want to say about Project Hail Mary?
I can't wait to go see it again.
Yeah, same here. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our Project Hail Mary look back at a movie that just came out. But there's plenty more coming up on the Movie Marathon podcast. We're going to be doing a series looking towards the Masters. So if you're a movie fan and a golf fan, we've got some fun rewatches to do there. And then we'll move into some fun franchises for the summer movie season. So if you look at the calendar, you'll know what's coming. But lots to look forward to. We'll wrap it up for this episode. Talk to you guys next time. Peace. Peace.